What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Ball and Breakfast podcast with Wayne. I'm Patrick. We are taking a turn tonight covering the NBA for the first time in a while, probably since we either did the NBA draft, possibly, also around playoff time, doing the finals and things like that. We usually cover it, pretty sparingly, but in the same sense, it's always fun to kind of give you a broad overview of what we think of the season. And it's already underway, but we'll definitely go through our standings. We'll talk about teams we like, teams we don't like, look at the playoffs, and then, talk some awards too. So without further ado, Wayne's going to kick it off with the Eastern Conference. And I'll turn the mic over to him.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, I mean, definitely very excited to talk about some basketball here. I'll be breaking down basically the teams that don't make the playoffs and kind of just go from the worst all the way to, who do I think is going to win the regular season Eastern Conference Championship, and then we'll definitely give some insight on the West too. So, who I think is going to finish last in the East, and particularly, I think my bet is on the Wizards here. They got the volume scores there with Kuzma and Jordan Poole. Not too much other, talent around them. I mean, you got Daniel Gafford as your starting center there, and he's like a decent a backup center, but not a starting center for like a playoff contender at all. So, I mean, yeah, this team that just has, and they got rid of Bradley Beal this past season and everything, or past off season, trading him to the Suns. So I just feel like they're not loaded on young talent. They're kind of just segueing their way into kind of tanking this season. So yeah, although Poole could definitely score in volumes, and Kuzma, they'll get some wins here and there. I just see them though finishing last year. So. And then, moving on, I think to the Hornets. I have them not making the playoffs here. There was that whole, Mikal Bridges or Bridges type of situation there, not Mikal. But yeah, his whole fiasco, I think, last season, and now things have settled a little bit, but they're kind of like missing some talent, I feel like. So LaMelo, it's always hard to see if he's going to be healthy out there, and that definitely is where I would have some question marks. And now that they're going through like new ownership, but I feel like that they're just going to be kind of going through some sort of transition there at the moment. So yeah, Hornets finishing, I think, next to last there. And then I got the Pistons actually coming in, I guess, third to last there. I think that they're going to be a little bit better. I think more seasoning with this young, talented squad. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to, take an advancement. They have Monty Williams there now, so I feel like that should help, adding that veteran type of coach who, a lot of people, they feel like he was kind of let go, in an improper way, I think, with the Suns there. So, yeah, I feel like he would be a good presence there. Maybe they are able to add a veteran or something like that down the line to help mature them, but at least for this season, I think they're so young. They're still just trying to figure things out a little bit more so. So, and then I got the Bulls actually here. Not the most. I just think they're really kind of dysfunctional. I think that Billy Donovan really got to get fired. I hope I don't see him basically finish the season with the Bulls. I feel like there needs to be some change there. Among other things, there can definitely be a fire sale, probably, is what I would anticipate, but I'm not going to hold my breath because I thought that was going to happen last season. But Bulls only getting older here, some talented players, but overall, they just haven't been able to figure it out. Not much progression too with Patrick Williams, and I've been as much of an advocate with Patrick Williams, but I've kind of lost faith at this point with regards to him becoming some sort of player that we can trust, I think, to build kind of our future on there. So Bulls there, and then last but not least, I got the Nets. I think with Mikal Bridges in that trading Durant, right? I believe the record was 12-15 afterwards, so that kind of fits right around this mark. I I do like, I think, the Nets overall, just in terms of like a fun team to like kind of watch. And I like Mikal Bridges as a player. They got Cam Jordan as well. So, or Cam Johnson, I should say, and then Spencer Dinwiddie. So there's some like talent there, but I don't think not necessarily enough talent to contend or move up to compared to some of the other squads that are ahead here. So, yeah, that's my bottom teams in the East. Pat, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on my losers, so to speak, for the East here?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty bullish on the Brooklyn Nets, especially comparatively speaking here in this conversation. I feel like Mikal Bridges kind of showed last year that when he had a team of his own, he can be a star. I think Cam Johnson is a really good support piece there. And actually, I've been hearing really good things about our favorite guy, Ben Simmons, as well, just kind of like taking a step up and maybe just being a little bit more assertive, a little bit more confident. I don't think he has to be you know, a a one, a two. I mean, he can be a three, maybe the fourth piece on this team. And I just think they have pretty good depth too. If you look down the roster, I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas off the bench, put in 36 points the other night. I like guys like Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith. Like they're good wing defenders. They're good pieces. Like even Nick Claxton, Duran Sharp, like two solid centers to have on your roster. Um, I feel pretty good about what they've assembled as far as roster goes, and I think they have a lot of flexibility and options to make a trade here, maybe throughout the season. Maybe they can grab one more asset, depending on what happens across the league. But I think they've got enough young talent depth to be competitive in the East. I see some other teams taking some turns for the worse in the East, so I think there's an opportunity there for them to be. Let's say a lower playoff seed.
Yeah. And I mean, the good thing I think with Mikal Bridges is that he does play, like he doesn't miss games there. And then, yeah, like Cam Thomas, right? Like he's definitely another player where it's like he just scored what 36 points, I think, in the first game of the regular season here. So, but yeah, to your point, what you were saying with Ben Simmons, at least in this first game, it was, albeit, yeah, against the Cavs, who, we could talk about later, but a lot of people are predicting them to be, top five, top three, even in the East here. So just losing by 1 point. But yeah, like Ben Simmons, though, like while he didn't shoot well, and that's kind of to be expected, but, had 10 rebounds, 9 assists. Like that's kind of what I would want out of Ben Simmons. Good defense, too, and, some hustle plays. So, definitely doesn't have to be the scorer, but that's what Cam Thomas is essentially for. So if they're able to do something like that, then yeah, I could definitely see them kind of move forth a little bit in the standings here. So, but yeah, I don't know. I just have a little bit more faith on a few other teams that I think could progress a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you more now. At the 10 seed here, making the playoffs, I got the Raptors. They are taking a little bit of step back, losing Fred VanVleet, but I think Dennis Schroeder, like he's a decent type of point guard that I think kind of fits them. So having him combined with all the other talent that they have, and we have been talking about previously, like are they going to blow this thing up, a little bit? I think they've kind of been that fringe type of team where they are right now. And, they do have a player like Siakam, right? Like, okay, maybe some other teams feel like they can utilize him in contention for sure. So, but yeah, at least for right now, the squad that they have, I think I can see them, yeah, in that 10 seed. But, to your point, like if the Raptors do believe that they want to move on from Siakam, play some of the more front court depth that they have, then yeah, they're probably going to lose more games, and then that's always where the Nets can come in and get that 10 seed, maybe 9 seed, etc., or maybe a little bit higher too. So, but yeah, I got the Raptors here, and then I think I'll go all the way to like 5, and see whatever makes sense there. But yeah, number 9, I got the Magic. I don't know. For me, I like their length. I think they're a young team that I feel like they've added some pieces that I don't know. I feel like they can just mesh really well. had a nice like opening win there. I think it was like against the Rockets, kind of just obliterated them if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, like nice young team with Cole Anthony, Paul Banchero, Franz Wagner. I think all those players could potentially be all stars. I think in the next 5 years, in my opinion. So having them and then some decent talent around them. As well with Wendell Carter Jr., who can get boards, play good defense, and is like your typical prototypical now like modern day center. If they can get some things out of Jalen Suggs, I know they can at least get some hustle out of him. And if they're able to get some form of shooting established, then yeah, this team can definitely, I think, be in somewhat contention. But I feel like they've had some seasoning apart from Paul Ventura last year to like mold themselves a little bit more and get familiar with each other. And so that's where I feel like they're a little bit better here. And then I got the Hawks actually. I've been iffy about the Hawks. I think I kind of want to see them do well just because I've always liked all the players that they've had. Whether it's like AJ Griffin, right? Like I think I kind of predicted him to be like have a pretty good, decent rookie year, and maybe he does progress a little bit here. I know that they saw John Collins leave and everything, but I kind of figured that they were designing their roster ready to kind of see him go. With Hunter, and yeah, and now obviously, they also added DeJounte Murray as well. So I feel like they have enough talent there. It's just putting it all together, and then now they've had a kind of a full off season and knowing who their head coach is there with Quinn Snyder, who has done a decent job when he was with the Jazz in the previous years. So I think there's going to be some level of setting step, I think, for them to build off in the future. They just have the talent, I think, and love to see Trae Young in the playoffs too. I always love seeing playoff Trae there. So, and then kind of moving on here, Pacers. I like them. I think this is kind of like my surprise team a little bit here. I love the addition of Bruce Brown. Adding some defensive talent there. Rick Carlisle, I think he just signed an extension. Very hard-nosed type of coach. And I love the team with Benedict Mathurin and Tyrese Halliburton, obviously. Buddy Hield, like that whole squad. Turner as well. Like it just seems like they have an underappreciated amount of talent in Obi Toppin as well. So I think that they can kind of sneak their way into somewhat contention here. I have them here in the 7th seed. And then the Heat, I got the 6. No Vincent, no Strus, right? I mean, I think those are two players that did pretty well and kind of pushed them to go into the further into the playoffs here. But healthy Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler is going to be Jimmy Butler, and they also still got Bam Adebayo, and he definitely is like an X factor, I think, for them in terms of scoring top 20 players. So I think that Bam is, in my opinion, he's one of the more unappreciated type of all stars in the game there. So I'll pause there. Tell me what you think, Pat. Any comments, questions, or any other things there? Would love to hear any of your thoughts.
Yeah, we've got a few teams up and down in these standings. I mean, particularly, I've got the Atlanta Hawks as my 4 seed. Miami Heat is my 3 seed. I'm really bullish on these teams as well. I think Miami has a system where they can create the next Max Strus, Gabe Vincent. I was encouraged by what Strus did last night in the opener, but I think Miami's resilient enough. I think they got those core building blocks there with Jimmy and Bam. Tyler Hero as well coming back, like you said. Kevin Love looks re-energized. Kyler Lowry is still there, and they drafted Jaquez too. So it's like I just feel that last year when they were just a play-in team, they were definitely not playing up to their standards. I think they were the 1 seed the year prior. So it's like I think they know how bad of a team they can really be in the good sense of that word. But it's like they just need to assert themselves and be it. And Duncan Robinson, I think, can play a core role off the bench with his scoring and make up for any lost, contributions that maybe Vincent had given them last year. So I think this team is still good. I still have confidence in them, and I think they're going to be, in the hunt to kind of prove that they're, one of the top teams in the East. Like you said with Atlanta, they have a lot of talent, and we've been talking about them like we've been talking about Toronto in past seasons. Like I think this has to come to a head. Like they're either going to be, a top, seed in this league, at least on the Eastern, conference, or they're gonna have to make some decisions at the break, because I think overall, with what they've kind of committed towards building a team around Trey, you got DeJounte there. Um, DeAndre Hunter needs to stay healthy. I think they've got some pretty good scoring options. I mean, with Griffin, you can bring Buffkin off the bench, Bojanovic. Like, there's a lot of things that they could do. Okongwu, gets a increased opportunity next to Capella. I mean, I feel like there's enough depth there for them to be a solid playoff contender here. So I just have just a bit more faith. And then I guess the only area where I see some doubts is I had Indianapolis. Just the Pacers kind of being out of my, playoff situation in general. Like they were below my play-in tournament. And, I like Halliburton and I like Mathurin stuff. I just feel like beyond that, Miles Turner has seemingly been on the block like year in, year out. And then I guess like just kind of going through the roster, like Bruce Brown is a good addition, but I feel like he's more of like your bench role player type than I think he can be like a third option on a playoff team or something. So I'm a little bit skeptical of like how big of a push they can make as a team.
Yeah. No, I mean, hey, that's definitely a fair point there. I just think that Rick Carlisle, I think he knows how to mold and toughen up some teams a little bit here, and this is Pacer basketball basically, right? Like get a bunch of like roughnecks are out there and see what happens, and what maybe a fight breaks out. So that's probably I think Bruce Brown. He definitely, at least it felt like he was kind of that X factor for the Nuggets in previous years. So, or last year when they won the championship. So, and we could definitely talk about them later. But yeah, I just feel like he is such an X factor. He's a culture kind of molder, if you will, kind of like a nicer Pat Beverly, like nicer in that he's not a complete dick, right? So, yeah, I feel like that's where I'll have him there. Yeah, I think I can continue on then on 5 through 1, and you can kind of go from there. I got number 5. I got the Knicks here. I got a lot of the same kind of faces that they had. Added in, some of Jalen Brunson's Villanova teammates there with DiVincenzo, Henry, Josh Hart. So it's like, it's kind of like bringing in some of that Villanova magic that they had, and then some continuity. Obviously, I think helps that they're kind of raising the bar, so to speak, with regards to improving their team. I feel like, and so I feel like maybe if RJ Barrett can take a next step in his offensive game, that could definitely help. So that's surely could be something that even pushes them a little bit further. But I think this is Julius Randle's team. I think he's going to be, in my opinion, he's maybe more so one of like a true MVP as well. Him and Jalen Brunson, I feel like those two players are definitely key elements, I think, for the success for the next year. So, and then the next, I got 76ers. It's one of those things, like, even without Harden, like, I know he's on the trade block. He's basically called the GM a liar or whatever, or Morey, I should say. And he's definitely going to be on his way out. And we can start to talk about that later, maybe some possible teams. But, they did add Kelly Oubre, who was a 20-point scorer, right? Last season, albeit it was with, kind of the lonesome Charlotte Hornets over there. So, but, have the MVP, Joel Embiid, have Maxey, who's, he can definitely be a contention for, I think, an all-star, this season. So, I don't know. I feel like there's enough talent on this 76ers team, I think, to still be kind of in that contention standpoint. Maybe not going all the way, but I think, again, with Embiid, they can definitely do a lot of things there. So, and then, moving on, top 3 now. Kind of similar, I think, to last year, but, having the Cavs here, adding Strus, a little bit more shooting. one of the best, I think the best defensive team, I think statistically in the NBA last season. And, I feel like just a little bit more seasoning now with Donovan Mitchell, year two in this system with the Cavs, be more familiar with his teammates. I think that can definitely help, with Garland as well, Mobley, who, a lot of people have him up for Defensive Player of the Year. And, maybe he also improves his offensive game a little bit too. I think, all those things, I like to see a little bit more improvement or the Cavs taking a step a little bit further on here. And then, the top two teams here in the East, man, at least in the regular season again, I have the Bucks. Adding Dame Lillard here, change of coach there with Adrian Griffin. So saying goodbye to Budenholzer. So, I mean, I feel like, it's going to take some time maybe for Adrian Griffin just to figure things out a little bit with this new team. That can definitely, cost, I guess, them, so to speak, like, maybe a couple games here and there. So, and then I got the Celtics number one. Again, just the regular season we're talking about here. Adding in Drew Holiday, I feel like they got better in that situation, compared to like Marcus Smart. He just has a much more vast, I think, offensive game. It can beat you a lot of different ways there. And then, obviously adding KP definitely helps as well. Had a really good game this for the first game, and I think he fits their team really well. I just think that they have, maybe they lack a little bit of depth because they traded on some, but I think that, as the season goes on, maybe they are able to acquire more depth from some bench help, etc. going forward. Then I think that'll help them, secure the number one spot. And you can't mention the Celtics obviously without the top, two stars there with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who, that's such a great duo, I think, from the wing positions there. So that secures, I guess, my East there.
Yeah. I guess I have doubts about both the Knicks and the Sixers being in the top, third there in the East. I feel like Philadelphia, they're on the course to like stripping this thing down to its studs. And, I've heard some rumors about Embiid being a chip in a trade with the Knicks, and I feel like if that was to go through sometime in mid-season or something like that, I don't really know if he was to, ask out or something. Like that would change the face of those two teams where I could see them kind of sputtering a little bit or, having to make that kind of deal. And I think the Knicks would maybe be in that market because, I just feel like there's only a certain amount of like upside I can really see in a Julius Randle led team. Like I feel like when the Knicks had a good season a few years ago, it was followed by a very mediocre one. And then they were able to get Brunson and get back up on the horse and like get themselves into a respectable, seating out in the East. I didn't necessarily think they did enough over the offseason to really like give them an extra little jolt in the East to, make them stand out a little bit more or have them like climb that ladder a little bit further. And with Thibodeau, it's kind of like I feel like players just start to like wear out under his watch, under his helm, and I feel like he can be very up and down as a coach, and the Knicks can definitely be up and down as a franchise. I think they brought over DiVincenzo. They made that whole trio of the Villanova guys with Brunson and Hart, which is like pretty cool. But there's just something missing there for me. I feel like there's a lot of number two options, but I don't really know if they have any alphas, true alphas that are, the kind of guys you can just start a franchise with and know that they're going to be like, your number one. So I have a little bit of doubts. I have a little bit of reshuffling. Like I talked about Miami and Atlanta, but those are basically taking the spots where I think you have the Knicks and the Sixers.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had, I think at least good thoughts on, for sure the Heat, obviously. It's just one of those, it always seems like, last year they didn't have the best regular season, which is totally fine by them. I feel like they're definitely just mentally prepared for the playoffs. And I think that's just where they are very much distinguished. So, they might not have like the most talent exactly when, with regards to getting regular season wins, but for sure, playoff time, tough defense, some clutch shooting. I think that's kind of what playoff basketball is all about, and that's really what fits into the Heat culture there. So, but Knicks, man, That'll be interesting. I think the Knicks are definitely going to be an interesting team. I'm definitely not going to like think that they are playoff contender, but yeah, if they do add in Embiid or something like that, like trade Randall for Embiid and maybe some picks or something like that, that could be a game changer there. Having Brunson, Barrett, and Embiid, like that's definitely a team that to be scared of. I think going into the playoffs and such. So very tough, good defensive team, I would say.
Yeah, from what I saw of the offer, I think they would offer up Randall and Barrett, and then they would give up quickly, and then they were talking about like 3 first-round picks or something for Embiid. So like, if that is the scenario, and that's what the tweet I think I saw was like kind of put out there as far as what the Knicks have actually offered, it's like, what would that essentially leave you with if you're New York for year one? Like, you'd have Brunson, you'd have Embiid, you possibly have Josh Hart or something. But it just feels like a little bit light, It's like it leads to a new transition for both franchises, but I don't think either one like truly is playoff bound in year one. If they are, they kind of fall somewhere at the bottom of that seeding. But no, I just think Philly, you could just feel the momentum getting like sucked out of that city. After going through the Simmons saga, now you got the James Harden one. You don't really know where that's going to land. Like, I feel like Embiid's just going to get sick and tired of it, and I don't know, man. It kind of sucks for Philly because they've done all that work over the time of the process, and like it's just kind of gone in this vicious cycle of drama and everything else. And I'm sure you can pin some of this blame on Daryl Morey if he's just playing too much hardball. Like, I don't think they needed to like bring back Harden. Regardless, I think that created an awful situation for them. They could have let him walk and place some of that money elsewhere, just outright to start free agency. Now they give him that 1 year that was obviously pricey, with the thought that, hey, we can spin this guy for like a top player. But it's like, I don't know, man. You got to kind of read the writing on the wall after people have witnessed what Simmons and Harden did last year. It's kind of at this point, you kind of have to just like roll your eyes at a guy like that and say like, I'm not going after a guy like Kyrie or Harden or a Simmons or any of these types. So, they might just be stuck with a bad asset, and they might just have to like eat it at some point, really, really eat it for, somebody's just willing to take the contract off their hands.
I mean, that whole scenario, I think with Dame Lillard, right? Like, I know there was a lot of conversation about Dame coming over to Philly, and obviously that didn't occur. And to make matters worse, he goes over to the Bucks there. So, like if I am Embiid, I would be frustrated for sure. And then, I don't know, with Harden, it's like, like what assets can you possibly get from him? Can you get like, a decent wing or something like that? I don't know. Like, it's hard to say where exactly he could, what kind of assets you can get back that's going to still keep you a contender, right? Mid-season, like that's definitely where I feel like it's going to be tough there. And I don't know. I think Morey too is like he wants to probably trade Harden, but I think he wants a certain haul that I guess makes sense and keeps them contending. But what's that going to exactly look like? And what teams are actually going to be willing to get Harden and just like eat that contract if they're not in contention already, right? So it's quite a quagmire, I feel like, for the 76ers there. But still Embiid, Maxey, Oubre, I think that's enough to get them some wins there. And then Nick Nurse, he's been a good coach, I think, and I think that they'll be able to at least get some W's here. Am I predicting them to win any championships this season? It's hard, not really at all, but I feel like they're going to be get some victories here. But that trade scenario though with the Knicks, that could definitely be interesting and kind of blow these things up. But I feel like that's not the Knicks character to do something like that. I feel like, you know what, MVP, maybe we have some assets there. No, we're not going to trade for him, So
yeah, they've actually done it the right way this time. And would Embiid end up producing the results they want to see down the road? Like, it's hard to say. I know Embiid being in New York would be a huge draw for players now, just knowing he'd be, there for the long haul. But they have done it the right way. Let's just see if they take that extra step this year, or maybe, they make that secondary trade. If they can trade for Embiid, they can make another secondary trade to bring over, some more, hustle types, hardworking guy types that, kind of fit a Thibodeau system. But
Mhm.
yeah, anyways, I've said my piece. The East looks good to me. Otherwise, I'm on board with Orlando. I've got them in my 7 seed. I, like you, see a lot of the potential in a lot of their young guys like Banchero and Wagner taking huge steps this year. Banchero could be one of the top, 20 players in this league, in my opinion. So as soon as this year, based on what we saw last year. And, they've got a lot of options at point guard and shooting guard, a ton of young depth. I like what they have under center with Wendell Carter. So it's like they're pretty much short up at all spots. So to me, it's just
Mhm.
time to take that step, and I think they're ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, they have a lot of, solid young talent there. The question is, like, if this is like my observation, they have a lot of, yeah, like young potential players, former, first round picks, early first round picks, right? Um, what could really like drive this team a little bit into like more so the title contention? Or maybe what makes more sense is like maybe some of the Bulls players theirs, right? Maybe something like that, right? Is yeah, again, they have a lot of young talent. They have Suggs. They have like a surplus of point guards that they just, hey, these guys are just the best available players. We're just gonna pick them, see what happens. Maybe one or two of them turn out, which is great. That's all we kind of need from there. So yeah, maybe there is a scenario where they, trade for Zach LaVine or trade for DeMar DeRozan or maybe a Vucevic, trade him back, say like, hey, that was nice having you. And I mean, thanks for the draft capital. Let's, trade him back for, I don't know what we can get for Vucevic there. But yeah, maybe you are able to get like a Jalen Suggs or something like that. I don't know. But I don't know, something like that could be nice or something to look for out here. Again, having some sort of veteran presence that I think this team needs a little bit of, and some shooting, obviously. So that certainly is where maybe a Zach LaVine that's somewhat motivated could be a good contributor there. So I don't know. I just feel like something like that could really take the Magic to that next step. Kind of like how not to say it's like Chris Paul to be the person, but like how Chris Paul helped out the Suns kind of take that next step. Really showing like Devin Booker, hey, this is what you need to be in order to be like all star type of player.
Yeah. If I was them and I was doing something like that, especially with the Bulls, I'd be looking no further than DeRozan. I feel like Levine might do Levine things and just kind of want to, play his own game and kind of be his own man stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what kind of has gotten the Bulls in trouble, at least trying to build a core around him and everything like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I agree, though. I think if they had a veteran, maybe, pitching over some of these younger guys that, are looking like mid-level players right now, but maybe have that extra, step to go in their game in a couple of years. Like maybe you make that swap and bring over somebody who's just a little bit more established to help, lead the way with Wagner and Banchero.
Yeah, yeah. Or Vucevic, that again could be interesting, right? It's like, again, this team. I think that the team needs some shooting still, right? I don't think Jonathan Isaac or yeah, any of the players that they drafted even were the best shooters, right? So I think that's certainly something that they can need. So, and if they do get a good DeRozan, I think DeRozan could be phenomenal for them. But I definitely see him much more of like, maybe coming off the bench type of role. It's just he needs the ball in his hand, and I feel like that could deter a little bit from Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, who they have the ball I think a lot in their hand there. So and then obviously Cole Anthony. I mean, yeah, I feel like having him. I don't see DeRozan like be with some sort of contender or your team in the playoffs because I feel like he's just kind of wasting his time here with the Bulls in a way. So yeah, he's too good of a player. I feel like to be in this team that's just kind of like on the brink of disaster basically. I feel like.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the East?
I mean, I think I'm good here. We can definitely talk about the eventual winners here, but yeah, would love to hear first off, who do you got in the West in the seedings here?
Yeah, I guess I'll go with your approach and start, bottom up. I think bottom for me is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. I think overall bringing over Wemby, is obviously a big thing for them. On upside alone, I think for attention, eyeballs, the culture of the team, like they can now kind of shape it around a certain identity. Um, I'm skeptical of his talent. I'm skeptical of how impactful he's going to be on the game based on, all the hype that he's gotten since entering the league. I don't think he'll live up to that hype. I think, we're looking at somebody who's probably in the realm of like, no disrespect, but like a Chet Holmgren to Kristaps Porzingis type. I see him being oft injured. But at least for this year, he may miss a couple games here and there, but he's still easing his way into the NBA. It's a different game. And I just, I don't love the pieces around him. I think Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell are helpful contributors. I think they can be solid starters in the NBA for their careers, but I'm just not sure they have enough elsewhere to really make this thing exciting for him. I think, Sochan and maybe, some Trey Jones are, good contributors, but it's like this team's going to struggle, and I think they're going to struggle pretty hard. Um, Next, I have the Portland Trailblazers. I like what they have, honestly. Like I like what they have on paper. Again, they're just a little bit, fresh. They haven't really like had a lot of time to gel together. I think that's going to lead to a lot of losses. They are obviously super young, but they have a lot of great pieces to build a nucleus for like a true playoff team. And I think this could be fast tracked pretty soon, depending on what happens above them in the West. But you got to love like Scoot, Simons, Shaden Sharp. You got Jeremy Grant still there, who signed a larger contract. Whether they keep him or not is one thing, but they could probably get value there. You got a pairing of DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams down low. There are some interesting things with this team. I feel like every single part of this roster is like filled up in a really like thoughtful way. I think they've got Thibault, and they've even got Ryan Rupert, who they drafted. Like those are guys that could integrate into like good defenders for them. Like it makes a lot of sense on paper. You know what I mean? They've got that balance now, and it's just going to take time, but they're going to definitely take their lumps. Next up, I've got the Houston Rockets. It hurt me to kind of put them there, but I think that, by bringing in Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks, while I think it can be helpful, I don't like the fact that they're bringing Amen Thompson off the bench so far to start, his career. I think he's going to benefit so much more from having some opportunity. And their window is going to be with Amen being a starter, in my opinion, and the rest of those young guys moving together in concert. So I think with that, I think they're trying to get too far ahead of themselves before they're actually there. That's why I was very much like against them spending a lot of money this offseason, but they didn't listen. So, um, but the other pieces, you got Jabari Smith. I really like Alperen Şengün. I think he's like a really talented young center who's just going to get better and better. Jalen Green is obviously a good scorer. Like there's a lot of things to like about this team, and this is why the West was so tough, because I think you could go up and down this conference and look at teams like that and just say like, man, this team's got a good plan kind of put together for the future. Number 12, I've got Utah. I like their pieces as well. I thought they did pretty, well in their own draft going after Keontae George. Um, they've got, again, pieces from 1 to 5 that I think are really, well constructed, put together. Jordan Clarkson's, back. You've got Laurie Markkinen looking like, baby Dirk out there. Walker Kessler, got some time with the U.S. team over the summer. So like he's getting some different experiences and stuff. Like this team, Colin Sexton as well. Like they've got some good talent. They obviously showed that they could play pretty well together to start the year last year. I think they are still in this process of like not wanting to be great, like wanting to stay in the lottery, wanting to hold themselves down. So maybe I'm a little bit ambitious on that seating right there, even though it's like out of, the playoff, window. But in the same sense, like from what they showed last year, they're a pretty cohesive team. And I think they, want to win and they want to play together. And, so far it's looked pretty good. At number 11, I've got Memphis actually. I mean, this one kind of shocked me after going through the whole standings, and, kind of crazy to do that to a team that I think is maybe when everyone is there, like one of the best teams in the Western Conference. But you're going to be missing, Ja Morant for 25 games. Steven Adams is out for the entire year. Jaren Jackson, I believe, is coming back from an injury of his own. This really like is falling all on the shoulders of like Desmond Bain and Marcus Smart. And to be honest with you, like love those players, but in the same sense, is that enough to like catapult yourself into, any sort of playoff window? Like, I don't believe so. Like, I think they've got some other guys that could be, good contributors as well. Roddy has looked, pretty good off the bench. I think, you know, um, Xavier Tillman looks like he could be some, kind of player, at least getting some starting minutes now. But yeah, overall, I think the momentum has been stripped from that team. I think the juju, the energy coming into the year is like, let's just manage. Let's just get over the hump. Like we'll bring in Derrick Rose, like, which I think was a good signing for them. Like I think getting Derrick off the bench is smart to like fill in some of the job minutes, but it's just not looking like a playoff team to me through 82 games. So I'm going to keep them just out of the play-in tournament. But that's my bottom five.
Yeah, I got the exact same bottom five, just switched up a little bit. Yeah, so I think I had Spurs, then I had the Rockets, then I had the Trailblazers. I'm like you mentioned, I do like the Trailblazers roster there. So I think they'll be able to maybe get some upset and squeeze some wins there. So and then I got the Grizzlies, and then I got the Jazz there. But so yeah, I agree kind of like with everything you said there. I really Rockets definitely. Like this team, 2-3 years from now, like this could be like kind of like the Nuggets, right? I feel like they kind of have that makeup. Like Sengun is kind of like that Jokic. Like Sengun looks amazing. So, like, yeah, I really like Sengun. And then, yeah, obviously all the talent there with Jalen Green, Thompson, etc. Smith. Like, there's just so much talent there. So I think, yeah, a couple years from now, they'll be amazing, and we can definitely see them moving up from here. Maybe they are able to acquire maybe some more talent as well. So maybe they do get James Harden. I don't know. Like that, I know that was a conversation before. So, but yeah, I agree. I think very similar outlooks. I think for all the teams here, yeah, just I think Spurs, Rockets, young talented teams, just not there yet. Trailblazers, going through this transition without Dame Lillard, but they do have some talent, and obviously Scoot, young point guard there, and then yeah, Jazz. I think that's definitely a team to you kind of keep an eye on, but I think they lack some upside. I feel like is I think with what we're all kind of agreeing upon there. Yeah, the Grizzlies with this whole thing with Ja Morant, and then like you mentioned, Steven Adams, like that's a big loss, and yeah, Jaren Jackson being hurt here and there. That's your defensive player of the year. I just think there's a lot of missing parts there, but Desmond Bain with him, if he's able to score some, they'll be able to squeeze out some wins there. But yeah, 100% agree with your bottom five here in the West.
Yeah. So moving on, looking at number 10, I've actually got the New Orleans Pelicans. I wanted to be a little bit more bullish on them as a team because I just love that roster when healthy, but it's when healthy, and it's Zion, it's BI. Already it's Trey Murphy the third, but even so, even with Trey Murphy out, like they still have, Herb Jones. You got guys like Jose Alvarado off the bench, and other guys. I'm missing a couple of, key players. I think off the top of my head, feel free to, kind of fill me in when you review them as well. But it's like, they're a team that I feel like could be really, really, dangerous, could be really, really interesting in the West. But it's like, I'm really nervous about that injury factor for them that'll just kind of continue to curb like their, ability to get over the hump. So I've got them at 10. Number 9, I got Minnesota. I'm not in love with how they constructed the team. Like, I'm not a Cat guy. A lot of people around the league aren't really Cat guys. Like, they don't really think he's, the type of player you need to get, into some serious like title contention. But I have a lot of faith in Anthony Edwards to take, yet another step as a shooting guard. And I think he's going to be like nearing 30 points per game this year. I think this is like a year where he really, blows up, and, you're not going to have to worry about Cat being like the guy there as much as you're just going to watch Anthony Edwards kind of take over. So with that, I mean, having Gobert there as kind of your rim protector, Mike Conley as like, your veteran point guard, facilitator, and then even like, signing Jaden McDaniels to an extension at small forward. It's like, it's nice that they finally have, I think, a five that makes sense. Like if at any point they decide to pivot, like I think looking at a Cat trade would be smart. Like they would have been smart, I think, in the offseason to have found a trade partner for Cat. Like could it have been Portland? Could it have been, Philly? Like we just don't really know. They didn't really, make that attempt, that effort. So I think that'll cap it because, cap their upside just to the fact that you've got Gobert and Cat down low, and it was kind of clunky last year. So I just don't see it like panning out, but they still have enough talent to be, at least in the play-in tournament here. At number 8, this may be surprising, but I've got Dallas. I don't love the Luka Kyrie pairing. Like we all know Kyrie might disappear for games this year. We don't know how many games he may disappear for, but he usually finds a way to. Beyond that, I don't think they did enough in the offseason to like gather enough depth to really make this team interesting. It just still feels like they're another guy or two short of being legit contenders. And I'm coming to question like how much Luka contributes to winning in general. Like I think this is a year where he needs to show, I can be the LeBron James of this team and I can, take a lesser roster yet again to larger heights. And, it kind of felt like he was getting a little bit down on being there, pairing with Kyrie, especially after they kind of missed, any playoff opportunity last year. So I'm giving them the 8 seed just based on Luka's upside and talent alone, but I have like a lot of doubts about what they can do altogether. At 7, I've got the Los Angeles Clippers. I think that this boat has now sailed, like this ship has sailed from the time that they acquired Kawhi and Paul George in the same offseason. We've seen a lot of, missing in action from those two. They're only getting older. As far as the roster around him, like I think Russell Westbrook's actually a good piece, in that system. I think he feels comfortable there. I still think he comes with some of his own warts too, just in terms of his inefficiency, shot selection, the amount of attempts, he wants to, take, and then also just the role that he wants to play on any team. Like I feel like he has not given up on, being one of the top guys on the team. And I think that ultimately hurts them as a franchise. I do like, the fact they can bring like Bones Highland, Robert Covington off the bench. I think, they've got a solid, bench, crew in that sense. I think they've got some trade assets there that would be interesting. I think Philly was at least interested. Terrence Mann, I feel like he's another piece that's been super intriguing. I think, with Russell there, it probably like hurts his ability to get more minutes, but in the same sense, like is a good guy to bring off the bench like a Tyrese Maxey. So at least for them, I think they have enough roster there to be like in the playoff window, but in the same sense, like I just don't think it's enough to really catapult them anywhere out in the West. And then finally, kind of in this middle tier in the West, I've got the Sacramento Kings. I feel like what they did last year was super impressive. But in the same sense, I don't feel like they really capitalized on building on that in the offseason. I feel like they had, if anything, pretty much a wash, bringing back Harrison Barnes, just returning a lot of the starters that they had there last year. They obviously played extremely well together. I just generally think there are just 5 other teams for me that look better than them, in my opinion, and that I'm a little bit more bullish about. And, I think Sacramento is going to be a good squad, but in the same sense, like I just feel like, they really could have like kind of threw some sort of like knockout punch here in the offseason if they would have added one more key guy, and they just didn't do it. So it's like, is the pairing of Fox and Sabonis enough? Like, can Keegan Murray maybe take that step? Or, I like what Kevin Huerter is, but I don't think there's anything else like undiscovered about him. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah. I think I agree up, with some of your picks here for sure. I had, the Timberwolves, it's definitely one of those interesting things, right? Where, I would like for them to, move on from either Gobert or, Karl Anthony Towns, but probably Karl Anthony Towns at this point. I feel like the GM has kind of like made his bed already with Gobert, like trading a haul basically just to get him here. So, I don't know. We'll see what what happens, I think, with Anthony Towns, but that whole front court is a mess. So they really need to clean that up. And I don't know what they were thinking, if they were thinking about anything like that, but yeah, having to kind of waste all that talent there with Anthony Edwards, like these are some good years, so they really need to like mold that roster. I feel like towards Anthony Edwards a little bit more so. So we see upon that, but like you mentioned, I do like the roster of the Pelicans. I think the names you were thinking of were like C.J. McCollum, and Jonas Valanciunas as well, like one of the best centers that really nobody talks about. So I think those. Like to your point, if Zion is playing, like this team is, if he plays like 60 games or something like that, like this team could be, top 5 or something like, in my opinion, they can be a top 5 team with the talent that they have, with the defensive tenaciousness that they have as well. Like they have all those assets that I think that you can have, and Brandon Ingram is reaching his prime age, and he's been, arguably just like one of the, top like all around type of players that you want in the playoffs. Like 6'8", nobody can really block him. So I really like this Pelicans team. But yeah, if they're just healthy, I think that's just the biggest thing. And I know previously we talked about, what would happen if they traded for Dame and then Zion, right? If they swapped those players or something like that. That could have been interesting, but. It sounds like they're going to continue on with Zion here, and he is healthy, as much as he can be. It's just a matter of, right, can he be healthy for the duration of the season? So, more to come on that, and for us to see there, and I think the rest will be interesting here. Clippers I had a little bit higher on. I think I'm still bullish. I think they could do it. Maybe this whole load management thing, that is more, policies in place to kind of make load management infrequent, and they do have a 70% win percentage when PG and Kawhi play. But obviously that's just been not too many games. I think these past 5 seasons now. So it's definitely one of those like, if it hasn't happened yet, like when is it going to happen? So I think the rest of kind of your makeup here all makes sense, and we definitely have the same feelings. I think with Kings, Mavs. I just don't see them, either of those teams. They didn't really get too much better the offseason. I think the Kings, they were just trying to get those contracts together. You make sure that the staples of Sabonis and Fox are kind of just there for the long term more so, and then maybe this next coming offseason they'll make some plays here. But same thing with the Mavs. I think Lively was the best acquisition, and that was via the draft. So not as much I think activity there. It could be interesting though if they were able to get a Karl Anthony Towns or something like that, and I don't know how that would all work, but something like that could be interesting, or maybe one of the Bulls players there too. So I agree. Mostly for I think some of those picks that you had there.
Yeah. So I guess on to the final 5 here, kind of moving up toward the upper echelon here in the West, but like at 5, this one felt a little controversial to me because I was like, man, I've always loved this team, but I just feel like this roster is getting a little older. It's a little weirder. The Golden State Warriors. I didn't want to do it, but I kind of felt like I had to. I think them having to start Paul and Curry next to each other right now, like that's not a recipe for winning. I mean, I don't think either of those guys play, enough defense there to merit, both of them being on the floor. I think this is the situation where Chris Paul just needs to suck it up and admit that, hey, it's my time to be a 6th man. It's my time to, help lead the second unit. At some point this season, maybe that happens. But in the same sense, like for those two to be on the floor together, I don't think that helps Curry's game. I think, you want the ball in his hands. You want him, being able to, come off any sort of pick and pops or, any sort of pick and rolls with, Draymond Green when he's back. So I'm a little bit worried about that. I think injury history wise, health wise, I have some doubts about them too. Like, can, Klay Thompson stay on the court all year? Can Draymond do the same? I don't love their bench depth. I think we've been kind of looking at Kuminga and Moody as like these, great prospects, at least, a couple of years ago. And it just really hasn't materialized in them being like I think, guys you can really count on to take up big minutes and be, top performers. And I feel like they've had to Band-Aid, solutions there, to make sure that, they've got some reserves there covered in case those guys don't pan out. And I don't know. I mean, on talent alone, like I still have him in my top 5 because, you can always count on Curry to be just an absolute beast. His age hasn't really shown just yet in his career, but I think with Wiggins there too, he's kind of like a stabilizing force, a guy you can count on for some really solid minutes, game in, game out. But yeah, I'm just having a little bit of trepidation there with putting them maybe in the upper tier of the West. Next up, I mean, this is my biggest jump. I'm sure you're in on this too because I haven't heard you talk about them just yet. But the OKC Thunder making a serious run this year. I feel so good about this team. Like, I love what I've seen from like Shea and Giddey over the last couple of seasons. I feel like getting Chet Holmgren back. Like, let's just hope he doesn't get injured. Let's hope he's not prone to that kind of thing with his body size. I just want to see what he is because I feel like. Seriously, he was the Wemby of, the year prior, and we just didn't get to see it like pan out. So, maybe this is the year. Jalen Williams definitely stepped up and showed like he's ready to be a starter in the NBA. Lou Dort's been there for a while. Like I've always liked, what he's contributed. And then I even thought the Cason Wallace trade was pretty smart. Again, we're talking about guys that are pretty young in their careers so far, but I really, think the world of Shea and Giddey and, this team just feels like, they've got a lot of energy. They've got a lot of momentum on their side. This feels like a year where they're just going to make that crazy leap, kind of like Sacramento did last year. And I just have positive vibes about them. At number 3, I've got the Lakers. This one was kind of tough because I kind of like went back and forth on, them being a 2 seed or a 3 seed. The only thing, giving them a slight knock is just age. Availability. I feel like LeBron feels like he's timeless, just like Steph Curry. But maybe his age shows a little bit this year. Maybe he needs a little bit more load management. Anthony Davis is Mr. Load Management, so we never know what we're going to get. He's like a box of chocolates. But I do like some of the depth that they got in the offseason, bringing, Gabe Vincent over, Christian Wood, bringing back Rui, Austin Reeves. I feel like those were all really great additions. They obviously took their own strides. And, this team feels like they're ready to contend for it all. I mean, I feel like this is the kind of team that, could definitely be, one of the top contenders in the West this year, of the pool that's out there. So I've got high hopes for the Lakers here. Like their window is very short, so it's got to be now or never. And we'll just kind of see how this year goes. At number 2, I've got Phoenix. Again, I kind of waffled on this with them and the Lakers only because, Beal is already injured. We've seen Kevin Durant have, multiple injuries over the years, missing a lot of games himself. Even Booker, I feel like, has missed some time. And I'm really curious of how this thing's going to gel. This is like truly year 1 for this nucleus. Eric Gordon off the bench, big name, but I feel like, again, he's kind of aging as well. They got rid of DeAndre Ayton just at the end there for Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, some other bench depth and stuff. Like, it's just all kind of melding together at once. Again, I don't think this is the Miami Heat. This isn't 3 guys coming together in their absolute primes. I think Beal's kind of in his own back 9. Kevin Durant definitely is. I think Booker is obviously the true stud, the true alpha for me. But with all that said, I mean, it's a pretty loaded roster. I think they'll be able to win ball games in the NBA. It's just, what's their actual upside? Like, what would they look like in the playoffs? Like, that's what I'm most interested in seeing. And then number 1, not going to move off the champs. Love, obviously, what they did all of last year throughout their title run. They bring back basically the same team, minus Bruce Brown, Jeff Green. I think those are losses to keep, note of. I think Bruce Brown will show he's going to have a better year. Getting more of an opportunity in Indiana. I think that's a good thing for him. But I think that Reggie, Jackson's a capable replacement there. I thought Christian Braun played really tough in the playoffs as well last year. He gets an increased opportunity. I think they figure out the rest of the, tail end of the bench there as they go along this year. Perhaps they make a trade that they didn't, end up kind of swinging in free agency this past offseason. So, maybe this roster isn't finalized just yet. But with what you have in that starting five, with what we saw last year, like, let's just hope Jamal Murray doesn't get injured. Let's hope Porter's back is okay. Like, those are the kinds of things that I, think could derail this team. And by derail, I mean maybe put them in the middle of, the playoff seeding in the West if things were to kind of go south for them for some of their key guys. But, with Jokic there, I think he's the most solid, dependable superstar, I think, in the NBA. I think, like, he's the kind of guy you want to, choose as your number one and just roll with it. So, that's my West, and love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, very similar top five. I had the Thunder, I think, at 5, Warriors, then Suns, then Lakers, then Nuggets. Nuggets, I agree. It's like they basically the same squad. Like, all the players are in the prime. Like, nobody's really aged out, essentially, right? Kind of like, maybe how we feel about the Warriors some, or even the Lakers with LeBron or, KD, right? It's like those guys are just getting older and everything, and how much more can they, I guess, contribute in playoff contention and in the playoff atmosphere. They played so many games in the playoffs, right? So, like, how much more can they give there? And yeah, so there's a lot of questions there, but yeah, same sentiments with the Thunder. Like, SGA, we're going to talk about some MVPs, right? But SGA, like, he'll be up there, like, by end of season. I believe he was first team All NBA, which is, like, it's hard to think of, right? Like, oh, this guy, like, was kind of seen as, like, I think, an afterthought or with that Kentucky team, essentially. And he's, like, one of the best players in the NBA. But lo and behold, he's definitely showing it. So, with Giddey, and then, I think, Jalen, he's going to take a next step. And then, adding in, like, this unicorn and Chet Holmgren, like, man, oh man. Again, this, one of these young, talented teams loading up on first-round picks, like, it will be interesting to see if, they do want to trade some of those talents and kind of, get a veteran presence there. Again, either from the Bulls or, maybe Cat. I don't know, So I think something like that could be good for, a team like the Thunder there. But I love what they're building out there. It's amazing. Warriors definitely, they are aging a little bit. Suns, it'll be interesting. Yeah, like, I think the last offseason and everything, like, we were kind of all shocked about this whole trade to happen, and, like, man, is this bumping up to contention? And I think I made the comment of, they need some time just for things to mold for a little bit and nurture. And, obviously they made the trade away from Aiden, and then, getting Beal, and now they have Jurkic there. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of moving parts. But yeah, they're such a talented team. No real point guard. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, Devin Booker is basically the point guard. So, he has been a decent playmaker, but yeah, not your quintessential, like, Chris Paul. So, and then, Lakers, it's a better team, and they made the surge, right, like, the second half of last season. So, I mean, I think, we're both in agreement there. Went to the Western Conference Finals, and, they still got LeBron, they still got AD. Again, I think the West, honestly, is dependent on health. I think that's like, are the Warriors going to be healthy? They have a history of injuries. Suns, same thing. Lakers, sometimes LeBron gets the injury bug, and for sure Anthony Davis. And then, the Nuggets, for sure. Like, we forgot about them. Like, Jamal Murray, he's missed some seasons here and there. And then same thing, with Michael Porter Jr. So injury bugs, like, whoever's healthiest, I think, at the end of the season, that'll be it. It's just take your bets on who do you think is going to be healthy there. So, I don't know. It should be exciting, I think, West there. But, I think we're in fair agreement on, overall in the West. Maybe not as much movement, I think, on the East there.
Yeah. No, the East seems to be, I don't know, there's more teams, I feel like, in middle tier, territory than I feel like in the West. It's a little bit more top heavy. Like, I can I can kind of sense that we, have a group of six maybe that I think are a little bit more firm than the group of six we would see out in the East up top. So it's like, we'll see how this year shakes out. I think, again, we have to look at injuries. We have to look at like what could happen with trades, guys asking out of situations. Like a lot of randomness can happen throughout the year in those kinds of situations. And we just don't know as of yet, like how it's all going to pan out. But this is a really exciting year to walk into because, again, you look at both sides of those conferences. I think there are like a handful of teams that are going to be truly contending, and that's always fun.
Well, speaking of, let's get to it. Who do you got? We can stick to the West here. Who do you got? Championship conference finals there.
Yeah, so I'm trying to put myself in a mindset where we're getting down to the playoffs. We're whatever it is, flashing forward 6-7 months here. For me, I'd like to think that Jamal Murray's injuries are in the past. I feel like, he's more or less able to kind of bounce back from that. Michael Porter I'd have a little bit more questions about just back-wise, but I think they'll make a couple acquisitions at the trade deadline to put them in contention and position. They're the one team, in this Western Conference that I have the most confidence in. So they've found themselves in the conference championship there because of the fact that, that group of five, they play so well together. Jokic is just like, man, he's special. He's like truly special. I don't think the game's seen somebody like him before, like period. And, he was able to win a championship off of, his ability to pass, his ability to seriously get to the hoop and score. Like he's just a lot of fun to watch play basketball. So Denver's definitely in there. And then, I went back and forth a little bit on, who's going to be joining them there, but I don't know, man. I kind of just went with my gut here. Like I'm going with Phoenix. I didn't really want to do it. I feel like I'd love to like stick with the LA, situation, but I do take into consideration that LeBron's going to be a year older. Anthony Davis, again, I worry about his injury history a lot because he's missed a ton of games and it seemingly happens every single year. So who's not to say that can't happen toward the end of the season, maybe potentially taking him out of it. For me, it's also the surrounding pieces. Like I think Austin Reeves is a really nice talent. He does give me like the Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson vibes though, where it's like, I think he's a nice scorer, but is there another level to his game? Like, I don't know if there is truly another level, to his game and like what he can bring. That's no disrespect. That's no slight. It's just, for me, it's kind of, it is what it is. If that's your number three, that's your number three. When I look over at Phoenix, like I feel like that three is pretty cemented there. I think it's going to take a while for them to truly gel together. I'd love to see what some of these, spare parts that they have can like do around them. But I think they brought in enough different types of players to like, fit different roles. Like I think a guy like Josh Okogie, from what I've heard, is locking guys down in practice in, all throughout the offseason. Like he's going to be kind of their defensive stopper. I don't love the Nurkic trade, like hit that, bringing him over, but I think he can do a job there at the five. And then, with Grayson Allen, I think he brings a guy who's got obviously some toughness, the ability to score off the bench, kind of your 6-man type with Eric Gordon. Like there's enough there to get excited about, I think, in Phoenix, especially with your top three guys. So I just think on talent alone, they find their way into the Western Conference, championship there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think I had the same sentiments there. It's hard for me to picture like a healthy Lakers team like 2 times in a row entering into the Western Conference Finals, even if they are a more talented team than they were last year. Like you mentioned, adding like Gabe Vincent and then also Christian Wood too, right? Like, honestly, like if this team were to be healthy, I'm just not banking on that. And yeah, maybe I am more so banking on the Suns to be healthy and to be able to play, well into the playoffs there with the roster that they do have. Maybe they do add some more depth, right? Like either by the trade deadline or, make an acquisition here and there. That could certainly help. But yeah, I mean, for me, like, yeah, they are probably one of the most talented teams, I think, in the NBA right now. And that roster, I think, just looks really solid. And yeah, Okogie, like they have the those like 3-and-D type of players with Okogie and Grayson Allen. Like, yeah, he has some championship pedigree there, being from the Bucks and everything. So I feel like, yeah, there's a lot to like about them there. And then Frank Vogel too, adding that, defensive mindset. I think he's definitely a solid coach, I think, to take a team such as like the Suns there. So I don't think they missed too much of a step with, and how they kind of got rid of Monty Williams there necessarily. But I think Frank Vogel is a very solid coach. He did, win a championship with the Lakers. So, but yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup, I think, there between Suns, Nuggets. But, if the Lakers are healthy with AD, though, that's a tough team. That is a tough team. So, but I'm just not banking on that. So, but yeah, who do you got? Did you say who do you got winning coming out of the West here and going into the championship game?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a quick decision here, but I'm going to go back with Denver. It's kind of rare that we see a team go back to back or even get into the championship 2 years in a row. But like, this is the kind of team, the kind of nucleus that, is staying together. They're in their window. And to me, like, they're a very confident team. I think they are seriously just missing a bench piece or two from returning a very similar team as last year. If health is on their side, I just don't think there's anything really stopping them from getting back to the finals.
That's a good pick. Man, this is a tough one for sure. In my thinking, if these two teams face up, yeah, I'll go the contrarian. I'm gonna go Suns. I'm gonna go Suns here. Devin Booker, right? Like maybe I don't know if there's anybody that can guard him. I don't know if KCP can guard Devin Booker like that, on a consistent basis. And then, adding in a healthy Durant in there too. I don't know. That's going to be a hard matchup, I feel like, even with the athleticism of, Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon there. So, I know. Yeah, these teams kind of faced each other last year, but at the same end of the day, it's I feel like this Suns team is just a little bit, I don't know, I feel like they got a little bit of something, a little more seasoning now. So I'm gonna go with the Suns, be the evil villain here, because I definitely love the Nuggets and the way that they play. It's just, something tells me, it's hard to repeat in the NBA. Maybe they get knocked off here in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah. The only thing I worry about with the Suns is their ability to play defense. So I really want to see that come together for them to have confidence in them being, in the finals or being one of the best teams, knocking off the champs from last year. Because, I think Durant's a good system type of defender. Like if he's got other guys, surrounding him, I think he can block shots. I think he can be a disruptor. But if you look around, it's like Bradley Beal, Booker. I think Okogie could be that guy, could be that like hard-nosed defender in their starting lineup or in the lineup that they put together to end games. But Nurkic has definitely been a liability under the rim in Portland, and it was one of the reasons why, they wanted to shed that contract. So, they took on an even bigger one when they got DeAndre Ayton, but like losing Ayton, it hurts a little bit. Like they definitely traded, I think a rim protector for some of that depth, and obviously getting his personality off the team was probably, something they needed to do. But I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. I want to see how they play defense this year when they're in crunch time situations against, playoff ready teams, and just be fun. But they're going to score, and they're going to score a lot. So that'll also be a different factor that they bring.
Yeah, I think the thing with them is about ball movement and not playing iso ball, because it's they have Durant, they have Devin Booker, like those guys like to create their own shots, and it's you look at the Nuggets, they're very much kind of the opposite way in that they're very much more about the matchup, and then from there working the offense through Jokic and kind of having all that ball movement run through him. Essentially, that's why he averages all these triple doubles and he gets a lot of people involved there. So, but I do worry about their bench. If they are able to make an acquisition, then maybe to help build up their bench scoring wise a little bit. I don't know how much Peyton Watson is going to do. I think a lot of people are kind of banking on him making a progression. He had a pretty efficient line. I think last season, I think it was 48% shooting or something, and yeah, so they definitely have the potential, and they've made some first round investments in years past, and I think they're kind of just banking on those first round investments now to add some sort of scoring depth, with Christian Braun in there as well, and obviously Reggie Jackson. It's just there's a lot of I think worries, a lot of young talented players there that similar to maybe like the Warriors, like all right, are these guys gonna maybe score double digits here and there, So I think that's definitely a big question mark for the Nuggets, and that's where I was like, man, that Bruce Brown, obviously it makes sense. I think probably for him to like, he made like $20 some odd million in free agency, so I get it. But yeah, it's a tough player to lose, I think. But yeah, I don't know, something about this, the Suns, pulling ahead here. I just have a feeling that they're going to do it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. But how about your Eastern Conference?
East, man. I had to kind of go the cliche. I think a lot of people are picking this because like nobody can see it any other way. Yeah, I gotta go with Celtics and Bucks here. Like the Celtics and Bucks team, like both of these teams got better in the offseason. I think that's pretty clear, at least in my opinion, right? Like Bucks landing Dame Lillard there, like that's and yeah, they still kept some of their a lot of their assets. I think overall, they still have Portis, Brook Lopez. He re-signed, I think, for like a 1-year deal there, and then hopefully Middleton can be healthy or as healthy as possible, especially for the playoffs. So I think that's just like one thing to keep an eye on. But I mean, the rest of the team though, like there's enough talent there, enough depth that they have, I feel like, and to make a run for the championship here. And yeah, having Giannis, obviously that definitely helps. He's in his prime now. He's like, oh, he's so old now. He's 28. Like it's hard to think about that, but yeah, like he's only going to be getting better. It seems like, and I don't know. There's just a lot of things to like about the Bucks team heading into the season here, and then yeah, the Celtics, they got better too. I think Jaylen Brown, he's probably not going to score as much now with Drew Holiday there, and then obviously like Porzingis. So, but I think they lack a little bit of depth. I think I mentioned that before, but yeah, this team overall though is a lot better and should be a pretty good watch, I think, for the playoffs here. So, but yeah, I guess I can make my prediction here between the Bucks, Celtics, who advances. I'm gonna say Dame time. Making a clutch shot there. Game 7. Waves bye-bye. Points at the watch. Let's go.
I love it, man. I love it. Damn. I mean, you set it up pretty well. Similar points here. Boston lacks a little bit of that depth that you want for a regular season team. But I feel like they're going to make another trade, I think, at the deadline. They'll probably bring over one more reserve type guy just to get him a little closer there. But, man, I just feel like when you've got the 6 that they do versus the 6 that maybe Milwaukee can put on the floor, guys that can bring into that actual playoff rotation, there's just that experience that Boston has right now that is just like, man, they were so close to beating Miami last year in that conference final, getting their way to a matchup with Denver, which would have been super interesting. But to trade out Smart and bring over Drew Holiday, who are also stealing from the team that you're going to play in that conference, championship. I think Drew Holiday is so seasoned. He's so mature. He's so, I guess comfortable playing in the playoffs and playing at that kind of level, and is still kind of, in his window here, like in his own, I don't want to say his prime, but maybe he's like still in his competitive window, where I think he's going to be an absolute matchup nightmare for Lillard. I think Lillard being there for the first time, we don't know what he can do in the playoffs, truly. I mean, I think he had, a really great series, years ago. I think it was against OKC maybe when he kind of waved bye-bye, to win that series or whatever. But like, that's really the only time I feel like I remember Dame Lillard, playing in the playoffs. And, for Milwaukee, I think they're going to take a knock a little bit defensively without Holiday there, especially in the backcourt. But man, when I go 1 through 5, in their starting lineup for Boston, and then even looking at whether you're bringing, Porzingis or Derek Williams, or maybe it's, Horford off the bench, like the 6 guys that they can bring into that rotation are just, they're so good. Number one, like each one of those players are very, very good, but they're also very good in the playoffs. So I'm very bullish on Boston this year. And although I love Milwaukee's depth and I love the addition of Damian Lillard for them from an upside perspective, I'm going to go with Boston, man. I'm going to take Boston. I think Tatum has another gear in him. Like I feel like he's ready to get back to the finals and possibly put his stamp on the championship here.
Yeah, I mean, Tatum is probably like my favorite overall player, I would say. Just the, he has a level of professionalism to him. I think for one, I like his demeanor there. And then he brings it to both the offensive and defensive table. He brings the intensity there. So, but no, like that, I did think about that whole thing with Jrue Holiday, and yeah, like having that defensive matchup on there with Dame Lillard, that could be something. I think my whole thing is like, that's what screens are for. They're going to be able to just screen him from Giannis and Brook Lopez. I think that's where I'm seeing there's a little bit more of a matchup in favor of the Bucks. There is down low, right? I don't think that Porzingis, and obviously also losing Robert Williams too, I think that was huge. A little bit of muscle. Like, I think the Bucks will be able to play bully ball there down low. Jrue Holiday, tough as nails there, but he's not going to be pushing over, Brook Lopez, 7 foot, 260 pounds or whatever. And then I'll support, Bobby Portis off the bench there. He was in the 6th man award race this previous season. So I feel like that's where Milwaukee just has that advantage. And then, Lillard on the outside too. And, all the other depth that they have. And healthy Middleton, probably be guarding more of, Tatum a little bit and trying to hold the fort there. Good luck. But yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know. I feel like Dame, he's waited his time. He's hungry. He's going to be, I don't know, scoring 50, 60 points in this playoffs and saying goodbye to whomever.
All right, man. Yeah. Well, I love to see it. We got all season to kind of build this up and see how it all plays out. But I don't think you can go wrong with who we've kind of lined up in our Final Four there, who we got in our respective finals. But who's your finals winner? Who's your champ this year?
Yeah, so I did get the Suns versus the Bucks here. And yeah, this will be a tough matchup, I think, for both teams. But I got the Bucks here. I got Bucks returning to glory. There was that disappointing first round loss last season, and there's been so much about, I think, made from Giannis's comments, right, about like, hey, this is just one, loss in my entire career type of thing. Let's bring some perspective on here. Jordan, he only won 6 championships compared to I forgot how many seasons he played. It's like, yeah, nobody's perfect, right? And I don't know, made this whole very created this conversation about life and philosophy and stuff like that through, some NBA playoffs and all that. And I'm like, people just need to get a life and be realistic about things. So adding in Dame Lillard, I think helps advance those causes for Giannis. And man, that's the one thing about Dame. He's been clutch, right? I think, with Dame time and such, he's been clutch. And in the playoffs, I think he always had that pressure on him. But then, now having a player like Giannis to take some of that pressure off of him, I think that's going to be, awesome for him and his team there. And then, if they can get anything from Chris Middleton, who's also been a pretty clutch player in the playoffs too, I think all those things had me in favor of picking the Bucks over the Suns with, KD. Yeah, he's been, pretty decent in the playoffs for sure. But then, there's always been questions I think about. He always kind of needed, Steph Curry a little bit to alleviate some of the defensive pressure off of him. And then, even having, players like Devin Booker there and Bradley Beal, I just feel like, at least Bradley Beal, I feel like he can get shut down somewhat, especially with, some tough defense from the Bucks there and designing, a game plan there. Adrian Griffin, he's a defensive-minded coach. I think people forget, like, he was undrafted coming from Seton Hall, but I think he averaged like 2 steals a game in like his rookie season or something. Like he's a defensive mindset person. So I feel like, they're going to be able to, slow down or shut down some of those players there over there with the Suns. And nobody's going to stop Giannis. Nobody's going to stop Clutch Dame. I just feel like this team, the acquisitions that they made, I feel like they have enough to win a championship, get Dame that chip, solidify his Hall of Fame career, and nobody will complain about him being the top 75 player of all time.
Gotcha, man. Well, I love it. Love the energy, and fear the deer yet again. We'll see how it goes. Man, my finals to me, like this matchup is just a heavyweight matchup for me because I think these two, fives, just really line up well with each other. They're very, they're very they have bigger starting fives than I think most other teams do in the NBA. Like, especially when you're trotting out, potentially it's like Derek Williams at point. Maybe it's Drew Holiday. They kind of flip off. I don't know how it's going to work out, but Derek Williams about 6'8". You got Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, which I'd imagine be, the rest of the front court there. Going up against, Murray, KCP. Then you've got Porter, Gordon, and Jokic, and it's like, I don't know, man. I go, blow for blow with each one of those positions, and I'm just like, Denver's definitely got the advantage underneath. And then, as far as like wing play goes, I think you give it the nod to Boston a little bit, especially with guys like Tatum and Brown and stuff. But then, you just bring in like the championship type experience of Drew Holiday. Like that's gonna be so good for, Tatum and Brown after, I think a tough exit last year. I think they just come in with like this renewed energy, this renewed focus. I'm so close to like wanting to give that to Boston. But in the same sense, I think down low is where it's going to hurt them the most. I mean, to have Porzingis or an older Horford matching up against Jokic, I think, like Miami did, they allowed Jokic to score on them all day as like one of their advantages to win a ball game there in the finals last year. And, to me, I think, Denver just plays a little bit of bully ball there with Jokic, have him just like, find the open guy, dish it out, get Jamal Murray back incorporated in that offense as basically his number 2. And I just love that surrounding cast around him in the starting 5 where it's like, man, as much as I want to give it over to Boston, I just feel like, I don't know about dynasties or anything. Like, I don't know about dynasties. And maybe this year teaches me a little bit more about what else is going on in the East and West, but like, I think they're good for this season, getting it again. So like I'm putting, my chips forward again with the Nuggets here. Love what they did last year, and not a ton has changed. And as long as they're healthy, I think they're the team to beat.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they have basically the same roster. Maybe minus Bruce Brown there, and if they are able to get some of their young, talented bench to make a little bit more contributions, like, this team's going to be dangerous. Peyton Watson looks pretty good, and so does Braun too. So, if they're healthy, I think that's the biggest thing, in my opinion, about the West is whoever's the healthiest at the end of the season, I think wins it. And, with how they match up against, I think, the Celtics, like, that's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, who guards KP more so of, I think in this matchup. Is it going to be Jokic? Because, KP definitely likes to play out in the perimeter a little bit. And, do you really want Jokic out there and such? So, but I don't know. It'd be interesting, I think, who also guards. I mean, Jamal Murray and Drew Holiday. Like that's gonna be a tough matchup. I think for Jamal Murray there. I don't know. Great matchup that happens for sure. That's going to be great. I think NBA basketball.
Mhm.
Very team oriented player or teams that like to spread the ball around a little bit, and every player could make a play there. So that would be awesome if there is a matchup like that. But I don't know. Yeah, I might go with the Celtics though. I feel like in that matchup, yeah, maybe I would go with the Celtics. I don't know. It's just hard to compete, but I mean, yeah, this Nuggets team, they can definitely do it though. They have the talent, they have the team chemistry, and yeah, Jokic, best player in the game right now. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for teams to repeat in any sport. If there is one where maybe we see it more often than others, it would be the NBA. But in the same sense, it's hard to get motivated to come right back and, go through the whole thing yet again. The fact that Denver did it seemingly with ease last year, like, gives me a little bit better of a feeling because it was like nobody really stepped up and gave them, a really hard time, like a truly hard time. So, um, man, yeah, I'd just love to see them take a shot here and there. I think this type of series to me is like definitely a 7 gamer, because I think this is a different type of team coming at them. If it is Milwaukee too, like I think that's another tough matchup. Like I would think that's would be a very interesting series to kind of watch play out. I mean, be interesting to see how Milwaukee does with a bigger lineup like Denver. Just in terms of kind of defending it. Like you can bring Brooke Lopez, obviously Giannis. Um, you know, would you put Chris Middleton up at your shooting guard and maybe think about, I don't know, bringing in more Portis or bringing in more, is it Connaughton? I would imagine Portis might be that bruiser that you'd want to do to like maybe combat like a Gordon or a Porter or something like that. But I don't know,
Mhm.
man. It's just this team to me is like, as long as they're healthy, man, there's just looks good.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something with how the physicality of the front court of the Nuggets. Like I think that was something that maybe some teams or I feel like I underestimated. With Aaron Gordon, with Michael Porter Jr., and then Jokic. Like they out physicaled the Warriors, right? Like that was like one team. It's like, oh, we're just bigger than you. We're gonna fight for those rebounds and get pull offense rebounds and get some putbacks in there. Like they just bullied some teams there. So, but yeah, like I do feel like though the Bucks match up fairly well with the Nuggets there though, right? If they'll have some length there down low, to help mitigate or stop, get in the passing lane here and there against Jokic some with Brook Lopez or Giannis or Portis, right? I feel like, all those players, like they're all, really good defenders there. So I feel like having that solid front court could definitely help. And then, yeah, having some bench scoring. And then also, I mean, I feel like Dame Lillard against Jamal Murray, they probably would take Jamal Murray off of him, put KCP up there probably. Just to like, bully him a little bit, but that's just a hard matchup. I don't think that they have a player to defend him. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm just excited for some basketball, but I think those four teams that we were both kind of looking at, like if any of those teams kind of like were to play in the finals there, like that would just be good basketball. I feel like.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. The only other thing I was to say about Denver is like they play an imposing style of basketball with their size and their strength and things like that. But in the same sense, like Aaron Gordon's like a great rim runner. Michael Porter can
Mm-hmm.
spot up from three. Like they're so athletic and they've got the size. It's like they are just kind of like they have a set of like freak athletes, I feel like, just kind of surrounding Jokic where it's I don't know, man. It feels really good to me. But yeah, I agree with your statement there. Like I think the Final Four are some pretty powerful teams. Like these are some juggernauts, so it'll be fun to watch them go at it if this is how it lines up.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Do you want to talk about any of the awards at all? No.
Yeah. Who do you got at MVP?
Yeah, I got man. Well, to your point, like I think I did have the Nuggets repeating in the West, so I kind of had to go Jokic here. I know it's one of those like I feel like when you have players like Jason Tatum and uh, Jalen Brown there, right? It's like there's this feeling that like, oh, maybe the difference between Tatum and Brown isn't as much, but then when it is something like Jokic and then Jamal Murray more so of, uh, which I think a lot of people, yeah, there's a quite a big difference of like number one, and I think uh, Jamal Murray, some people maybe rate him as like the 15th best player or something like that. Maybe maybe out of the top 10 there. That's definitely where I feel like there's much more of a proclivity to give Jokic the MVP more so of, especially if he has for the number one seed here. So yeah, I had him there, but then it's like, man, I know there's Embiid. I know he's had his whole thing, but I'm kind of just like I feel like there's going to be some sort of reckoning over there with the 76ers taking some of the hype away. In all honesty, like I believe SGA will be moving up a little bit there. I think he's going to make a big move, maybe top three, honestly. And then, yeah, I feel like because it's like who's the best player on this team? That's like we both predicted, I think, to be like top seven, right? Like, yeah, this one guy with a bunch of like a young roster around him who was a first team All NBA last season. If he's able to replicate or exceed that performance that he had last season, he's still really young, right? He's like 23 or something like that. So it's like he's gonna get better. He would be like my second pick of a true MVP type of player, like maybe him or like Giannis, right? But yeah, I feel like him. Well, Giannis has Dame Lillard, and that's definitely one of those. You can't have too many good players, right? I feel like, I don't think like you just can't have too many good players there. So gonna go Jokic repeating, but honorable mention there, SGA.
All right. Yeah, I think this is one of those things where, in my mind and in everyone's probably opinion, Jokic is the best player in the NBA. At this point, what has he won? Has it been three MVP? Is he at two?
I think it's two. I think it's
Two
two.
MVPs. As fair as it is to hand it over to him, I feel like this is a year where Tatum separates himself from being in this duo and shows that he is the true alpha on that team. Takes another step. I mean, his points per game has only increased as the years have gone on. He's in his age 25 season. Like, to think that he's only 25 years old and kind of thinking about what he's already accomplished, like, hats off to him. I think he develops, maybe a little bit more in his game. Like, can he bring his assist total up? Can he bring maybe his rebounds up? Can he, potentially like improve his defensive game where it's very noticeable? Like, I think he's the kind of guy, he's almost driven like a Kobe Bryant, where I feel like this is a year where when you're looking at teams like Milwaukee who've added Lillard, or Phoenix who have got all those stars, and then Jokic who's just kind of been like the pageant winner over the last couple of seasons. I feel like it's kind of like Tatum is on that same spectrum, although I probably wouldn't think he's like my first pick of a player in the NBA. I think this is the year he gets coordinated with his first MVP.
I mean, like I mentioned, like I think he's probably the most, when you look at what he brings to the defense and what he brings to the offense, his offense is a complete game, right? Like, yeah, and he also has the athleticism that maybe, a Jokic doesn't necessarily. So, but yeah, like Giannis can't shoot like from the three. He tries to on occasion, but he's not like a 40% shooter, right? Or 35%. So, yeah, Tatum, most like overall, I think complete player in the NBA. If you combine also or factor in speed, athleticism, right? I think he has that. So, um, yeah, I definitely think so. I just worry about, you know, to your point, like or I should say, what Jokic just like I don't know, I feel like assists, right? People like the assists, man, and I think Jokic will still get those assists going, and Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, to your point, like I just don't think Tatum will have those numbers to compare. If he's able to get like 7 assists or something, I mean, he did get KP out there, and Drew Holiday. He may not be able to score 20, you're right, but maybe he's able to score like 17, 18 or something like that. Maybe that some of those assists go over to Tatum. So I don't know. It's just hard for me. I'd love to see Tatum get an MVP. I think maybe just further down the line a little bit, maybe when the roster is a little bit more depleted, or maybe the team's just more relying on him. So, but yeah, it's the blessing and curse of having a good roster around you. I think it's just 1 through 5, like all those players on that team can on the starting lineup, they can score like 20 in almost at any given moment. I feel like so. Yeah, it's just hard, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe Jokic doesn't win it, and I would love to see Tatum to win an MVP.
Yeah, it's just funny when the analysts have been on Jokic winning MVPs and this and that, and he just kind of came out and like showed the world who he truly is, and it's like I think everybody can now shut up, after Joel, because like last year Embiid got it, and it's like, do we really think Embiid's better than Jokic? Like most of us didn't. So I just feel like they're trying to find. It was the Jordan thing, it's trying to find another guy
Yeah,
who we can just give it to this year and stuff. But
yeah,
we'll have to
Carmelo.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, come
Carmelo
on.
thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, while he's preying on 13-year-old girls, man. So anyway, yeah, we'll leave it at that. How about for defensive player of the year?
Yeah, I think who do the Vegas odds have? Defensive player of the year. I forget who exactly Vegas had, but I'm gonna go with Evan Mobley here. Actually, I think he came in second last year, um, and very rarely is there a repeat winner for this award. It feels like I think it was um, Marcus Smart the year before, and then Jaren Jackson last year. So it just always seems like it bounces around. Like it's kind of like a very what's hot this season type of thing. I think Evan Mobley, like he was there last season, and I think he continues on, builds up more of a reputation, right? Because again, this award is very much about reputation. I feel like, so I think Evan Mobley gets it there. I think he's, like I mentioned, second in the odds there, and with a very stout team or stout defensive team there with the Cavs, as part of their identity. I feel like that definitely solidifies much more of a reputation that they have, and I think that gets Evan Mobley defensive player of the year here. With respect, I think Herbert Jones, though, I think he ought to be getting something there because he can guard 1 through 5 and do it pretty well. So, but yeah, I'm gonna pick Evan Mobley, defensive player of the year. Second place maybe being like Herbert Jones.
Got it. For me, I'm going to go with Bam Adebayo. I feel like he's been in the mix. He's been in that conversation year in, year out. To my knowledge, he hasn't won it. From what he was able to do with that Heat team last year, I think that helped to bring a little bit more press and coverage to his game. Like the fact that they, play so small and, just don't have a lot in the front court besides him. You can kind of see what his role is underneath and kind of how he controls everything, kind of, able to get the rebounds, able to block, shots, able to kind of then go ahead and like, at times take the ball up as well. It kind of reminds me of Draymond Green a lot of ways when, Draymond was truly in his prime. But I think the fact that he's spoken about it and he's kind of made it known, like, hey, I'm one of the best defenders in this league. And he's been kind of slighted year in, year out. Like, I do see Miami being very competitive this year. I do see them, not, sitting on their hands like they kind of did throughout the season last year. And you're really putting themselves up in a top seed. And I think that'll also help to like build his case. So, I'm going to go with Bam here.
Yeah, I love Bam. Bam ought to win Defensive Player of the Year like almost every year. I feel like he just gets under like I don't think Rudy Gobert deserves the Defensive Player of the Year. Like he gets blocks because he's tall and long, right? But then you see like good teams in the playoffs, they just abuse him, like pick and roll abuse, like. Yeah, but Bam can guard that. Bam guards everybody. He can guard point guards. There's videos of him I think there was like guarding like Dame Lillard and stuff, and he held his own there. And yeah, he can guard the big, Joel Embiid of the world there too, and slow them down as much as possible. So he can guard literally everybody. Rudy Gobert can't. Like, this is the NBA, the modern day NBA, where you have to have players that can guard like 4 positions basically. So, and Bam can guard all 5. Like, how many players are like that? So, yeah, like he definitely deserves it. But yeah, like I said, this award it is like a flavor of the month type of thing. I feel like oftentimes, but Bam honestly deserves it like basically every year.
For sure. How about Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, rookie. It's almost cliche to say. I have to go with Wembanyama though. It's like I don't know, man. Like you kind of have to like check all the box. He checks all the boxes, I think, with regards to that. And I know there's been this whole thing about Chet Holmgren a little bit, like, oh, he's like the dark horse. He's got SGA on there, and that's just hard for for the stat padding crowd, right? Like, oh, Chet Holmgren averages like 7-8 rebounds. Well, Wembanyama averages 10 or something, right? Or Wembanyama, he's going to get more opportunities shooting and such as well, and he can probably do it at a pretty efficient rate. And Chet Holmgren, like, he's going to be probably more on the just catch and shoot from 3-point line, when people try to double SGA and get his points that way more so of, but he's not going to do much like around the rim unless it's like an offensive rebound, I feel like. So whereas Wembanyama, he's going to get the ball all the time. So like each possession, he'll probably be touching the ball. So I have to go with Wembanyama here with respect to Chet Holmgren and Scoot.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said Scoot because that's my guy. I feel like you talk about somebody getting the keys to the car and being able to just like floor it. I feel like that's going to be his game all year. Unlike Holmgren and Wemby, just in terms of like body size and what I think could be maybe some brittleness, maybe some time needed to like heal some injuries and things like that. I just feel like you're going to get 82 games of Scoot Henderson, with the ball in his hands, with I think a lot of options around him to really, help to pad his stats, help to get him a lot of assists. I think he can score the basketball. I think he can pretty much do it all. And I think it's going to be on full display. I mean, they have nothing truly to play for, so I think that'll allow him to play a little bit looser. But yeah, I mean, I think this is like year one of them kind of building an identity as a team. I like what they have, and I just think he'll fill up the stat sheet enough to make his case. I could see him, potentially pushing for maybe 8 or 9 assists a game. Maybe he's able to score 15 or more points a game as well. Like, this could be a very interesting year for him, and I've just got full confidence there. So go Scoot.
Yeah, and they also got Chauncey Billups there as a coach. It's like he's a point guard. He knows what point guard's like, so that can definitely be going into Scoot's favor there. And like you mentioned, there is a good roster there with Anthony Simmons getting this assist, and then Aiden, who can be a rim runner for him and such. So there's just a lot of opportunity. Scoot's in a great situation, I think. I think out of all the players that got drafted, like, he's currently right now in the best situation, but we'll see what happens, I think, in terms of future draft capital and such and acquisitions for Spurs and such. So
gotcha. How about your sixth man?
Sixth man, I'm gonna go with the Vegas favorite here. I'm gonna go with Immanuel Quickley. I think I believe he finished second there, and it's like I think you were talking about like the Knicks and and scoring, maybe coming off the bench or even in some certain rotations mixing in with the starters there. Like, Quickley's been the guy. Like, and I think it usually takes like a couple of years, right? And I think he's been in the league like maybe like going to his 4th year now. So it's like this is like the time for he feels confident, he knows what to do, and like coming off the bench, like he's the guy I feel like that the Knicks are going to rely on more so of, and he's got talent, he's quick, and in my opinion, he's a pretty underrated shooter. I feel like I've seen some times where he's able to shoot the ball like pretty lights out, and at any given time he can score 20 points in a game, right? So I think that's kind of what you look for in a sixth man. And like I mentioned, he was runner up I think last year. I think this year he pulls it off and yeah, wins the sixth man here.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think there are guys like Quickly too, like a Bojanovic. Trying to think. There's some other scores I feel like, Tim Hardaway Jr. on Dallas, where it's like they're veteran
Mm-hmm.
scores. They can put up points and things like that. I think Quickly has a little bit more in his game than guys like that. When I was looking at this, the one thing I don't know is whether or not your team has to kind of be in playoff contention to be considered a sixth man, or can you be one of the basement dwellers and have a sixth man that's obviously worthy of it. For me, I'm going that route. I'm going to stick with the same team as my rookie of the year. From what I've seen so far, it looks like Anthony Simons is a starter at shooting guard, and I love Shaden Sharp, man. I love what he can be. I think he is not he's not established himself in a sense of you know understanding what his ceiling is just yet, and I think he's shown what his floor is, and he's easily a double digit scorer. I think he can be a lot more than that. I think at some point he'll be back in that starting lineup. So it gets kind of confusing a little bit because I'm kind of like, if it's Shaden Sharp, I'm happy to go there. If it's Anthony Simons, I'm also happy to go there as well for my sixth man. So it's like, I'm thinking Sharp sticks in that six man role, just as the season plays out. So I'll say Shaden Sharp officially, but if it happens to swing more as Simons being the legitimate six man, I'd be happy to take him as well.
Yeah. No, I think that can certainly be something. I'm kind of looking at the past six man winners, and I don't have like team records on here, but I believe that these players were the six man for like playoff type of caliber teams. I think here, so
Gotcha.
yeah, great young talent, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity over there. I think in Portland, so could have some upside with regards to like a six man award or something.
Here's my question too: has a rookie ever won six man of the year? Because how about Amen Thompson coming off the bench for Houston? Like, if that guy is seriously, an absolute stud, and they have Van Vliet and Jalen Green kind of blocking his path toward starting minutes, like, would they consider him there? Like, that'd be very interesting. But again, a crappy team.
Yeah, I mean, when you bring in like a high first round pick, like coming off the bench like that could definitely be a possibility. I mean, it definitely is like an interesting, I think, concept of like the sixth man, right? It oftentimes is a scorer though. Like it's somebody that just scores basically. That's their primary function, and then everything else is secondary, right? Like I think Montez Harrell, I think he's won it a couple of times, or maybe just once here, but he's been in conversations several times. Lou Williams, like I know he's been the consummate like one that we oftentimes talk about. So is Jamal Crawford. Like all those guys are scorers like primarily. So I think that's oftentimes just like the big thing that people look at. But it's like, well, I don't know, what about a solid 3-and-D or a little bit of defense in there? I feel like that's an important thing. But I think yeah, when you're the second unit, like I think the biggest thing you just want somebody to score, and I think that's where people look to whoever's averaging the highest points off the bench for the six man there, and yeah, it definitely goes into favor for the Jamal Crawfords and Lou Williams of the world. So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see if they do factor in win loss record or who's in the playoffs. I think, but I think both. I think Sharp definitely could be a player, and Thompson too, because they're in great situations to just like ball out.
Yeah, I guess thinking on that line too, like Kelly Oubre is the type of guy, if he's just like stuck in a six man role, like another guy is just going to put up buckets. He'll probably be in a better situation than some of the guys I named, at least team wise. So yeah, it does feel kind of like a very empty award in some senses. Like I don't necessarily know if that's like the best way to define the key reserve of the year, but I guess we kind of know, these awards kind of follow certain trends, and you know, for our next award and the one to follow, I feel like they're also very predictable in that sense. But For the next one, we got the Most Improved Player Award. Wayne, who you taking here?
Man, most improved. I don't know. This is gonna be a tough one. Like, I feel like I don't know if SGA's won it already, but I know like how much more can he improve from like I think he averaged like 30 points or close to 30 points like last season. So, uh, most improved, man. I don't know exactly, but I'm gonna go on a limb here. I feel like Obi Toppin is in a good situation, and I think he could probably take a jump here to be like a potential All Star or some sort of All Star type of player. He's now free from New York a little bit there. Now he's like, all right, I'm in Indiana, being a pacer and such, but I got a great point guard there with Halliburton, and I can definitely make the most of this situation where I don't got too much else around me, but I can definitely be a high flying type of dunker, maybe like a Blake Griffin type. So I feel like there's potential there for him to just ball out, and I do have the Pacers advancing a little bit there. So I think that all kind of coincides with me being high in the Pacers, and then Obi Toppin being a key contributor, I think, for them there.
Gotcha. Yeah, my end, I'm going to go with a guy who has already kind of established himself, cemented himself as, a key cog for his team. I think his team takes a jump this year, gets him into playoff consideration, into the playoffs. I think they put together a good first round against Boston, but it's going to be led by Paolo Banchero. Love what he did in his rookie year. I mean, 19-7. Look the part for sure as like a number one overall pick. I feel like this is the kind of year where everything across the stat line goes up. He shows he's capable of leading a team into the playoffs. He shows that they're a dangerous team as they get into the playoffs. I know they kind of, word stuff at, prior to playoffs actually forming, but I think, what he's able to do for that franchise, how he's able to move it kind of forward, take that next step. I think that'll be definitely noticed. And, no, I just see him being, a star very fast in this game. And, I think it happens, as soon as this year.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he'll be better. I think my whole thing is how often does it happen to the first overall pick, though, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
that's my big thing. It's like, don't you expect the first overall pick to like make leaps and bounds? Probably. I mean, I'm trying to look too, see if there has been any first overall picks. I think John Morant, like he was second overall, and I believe too. So was Brandon Ingram in there. So maybe there's somewhat of a precedence of like a high draft pick, but not necessarily first overall. But I can definitely see him. Yeah, like you mentioned, like both of us predicted or are predicting the Magic to be better. So that could definitely coincide with all that.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I didn't look at this list prior to making that decision. The fact that Ja's in there, I feel like helps the case out a little bit because I feel like what we saw from Ja maybe his rookie years, everybody saw the talent, and then it was almost like his second year where I feel like Memphis really got serious and like people were like, oh shit, it's because this kid here
Mhm.
is taking this franchise on his back, and like, yeah, I just see that in him. Shea's already obviously won it a couple of years ago. He'd be clear. Maybe it's not most improved. Maybe it's a guy like Giddy who's most improved, who's able to like kind of be his right hand man and
Mm-hmm.
like elevate that squad. Like he's going to be the thing that really helps push that squad forward, like his development too. So maybe he's a good contender in that as well. Yeah, but I mean, I guess looking down the standings of like what we kind of predicted, there's just not a lot of guys, for me that really stand up as like, being the factor that helped contribute to a team, taking that rise. Or personally, I can't think of guys offhand going across, just different squads as like, yeah, this guy's going to take a definite jump and it's going to be noticeable and it's going to be impactful, this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think, yeah, maybe OKC. They just have a lot of young talent, and odds are like Giddy, Jalen Williams, like all those players. I feel like could be players that are up for that award because they're young. There's a lot of opportunity on that team to score more points, and then players are going to be or teams are going to be looking at SGA to beat them basically, and making sure or double teaming him more so of. So that should alleviate some pressure for Giddey to make some plays or Jalen Williams to score more. So I don't know. Yeah, I could definitely see something like that happening there.
No doubt. I mean, with what Max Strus did yesterday too, like he could be another guy in that kind of, in that situation. Because, as far as what I saw yesterday from his line, it was like, man, you were looking like you're, either the alpha or the right-hand man down there. And, that's not what's supposed to be the case, I guess. So maybe it's like he gets those starter minutes. He's able to really showcase his game and like take it to maybe like an Austin Reeves level where he, really wasn't, there in Miami, but he was definitely starting to cement himself as at least a starter. So maybe he's another kind of guy who, comes into this mix.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see him. I mean, trying to think if there's any, I mean, maybe one of the players in the Magic, there's a lot of young, talented players there still. And it's like, if one of them could just, average 5 more points or something like that, that definitely gets the eyeballs looking at them there. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity, I think, on, some of these teams like, Portland too. And, these up and coming teams that, I think we're all kind of thinking that they're going to make some movement this season.
Yeah. And I'm also a little bit more bullish on Brooklyn, but like if Cam Johnson can be something, he needs to be kind of that number 2 to Mikal Bridges to get them, into a higher seed in the playoffs. So like if he can, just completely polish his game, be a double guy, consistently and be, helping them win more games, like be a 500 plus team, like that could also show a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mikal Bridges, I think he actually has the best odds here, at least according to Vegas. So, I mean, he showed, I think, late last season, and maybe they're just like, all right, we're gonna just look year over year, right? And then other players to see here, Tyrese Maxey, but it's like I don't know, he's averaging 20 points already, like. If he averages 28, like great, but I don't think that's going to be happening here. Cade Cunningham as well, who, first overall pick. Anthony Simmons, right? Going to get more opportunity. So that could definitely be something there. Maybe Aiden. Like that could be something if, I know Aiden's always wanted to be like more of a, like basically Joel Embiid, right? This is an opportunity then to, showcase what he's got there. So yeah, a lot of different changing, young talented players that are changing scenery. I think that there's some opportunity, I think, for them to do something there. So,
gotcha. This was the other token award, but how about Coach of the Year?
I mean, I gotta go with I gotta go with the Oklahoma City Thunder's coach there, Mark Daigneault, I think is his name or something like that. So. Yeah, it's one of those like, wait, who's the coach there? Like, I honestly didn't know, but I'm like, he's gonna win it. I think just because, there's so much young talented players there. They have a good system. They're beating teams that they need to. They just clobbered the Bulls and everything, in the opener. So I just feel like. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they're going to make leaps and bounds, I think, from where they were last season to this season. And coach is going to get a lot of credit there. But honestly, it's like, good coaching for sure definitely helps. But man, they've been doing some good drafting, I feel like. And that's that they're slowly building that team from the ground up there.
Yeah. Same coach for me. Obviously, we both had our eye on them taking a major leap this year. So with that comes a Coach of the Year award for the team that takes the biggest rise in the standings, in most years. I think if there's any good, secondary options for me, like Orlando's Jamal Mosley or Brooklyn's Jacque Vaughn, at least in my standings, like I think those teams take a bit of a leap over expectations. But
Rick Carl and mine as well for the Pacers. I think that was like he's ready. I think he's won Coach of the Year already and has a championship under his belt too. And he's a good coach. He's a good defensive minded coach, and I think he could do some things here for the Pacers. So especially with Bruce Brown too. So
sounds good. Well, man, we've covered the gamut here for NBA here in 23-24 coming up, but Did you have any other final thoughts on NBA before we close out on our own final thoughts?
I mean, I'm just excited. I remember watching Dame Lillard in Portland when I visited there once, and I guess maybe it has to do with my favoritism about them winning the championship here. I feel like just I love to see him now being with a contender finally, and whether he wins or not should be exciting. I think during the playoffs there. Cool. What's your final thought?
Man, I don't know, man. I didn't really come in strong tonight with any sort of final thoughts. I think the biggest thing for me has been like sleep lately. So like I've just been go 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 every single day and even night with our podcast and stuff where I'm getting like barely 6 hours of sleep. And man, I don't know. I don't operate as well, to be honest with you. I feel like I've needed a lot of coffee and things like that. I don't know if I have an exact point here, but in general, I value my sleep. I get far less these days than I ever have before. But like Wayne, what's your typical like? You don't have anything really on the agenda or something like? What does your Saturday kind of look like? Are you more of like a sleep in type of guy, or do you like to be very regimented up at a certain time every single day?
I mean, I kind of just naturally wake up like, at like 6 to 6:30 usually. Even on a weekend, like I'll even if I like, was hanging out with some people or something like that late and then all of a sudden, I don't know, I'm gonna be up like 2 hours before, 6:30 basically. And that's just kind of how it works for me. But yeah, I'll definitely try to sleep though, at least try to get like six, I think. I have to at least get six. Can operate on seven, eight preferable for sure. So, but yeah, podcast. We shoot at night, so it definitely doesn't help. And I appreciate you, man. Like, yeah, you're grinding. You got your full time job. You got a family. Like, I'm like all those things, minus the family. So like, yeah, I'm like, how would I manage all that? So no, kudos to you for doing all that. And then, I mean, I try to at least, yeah. I'm just looking into, I don't know, getting like maybe some CBD. I feel like that's been the cool thing to do these days. Just something to ease through the night a little bit. But I mean, I've tried, some nice tea, some chamomile, light a candle, put on some ocean sounds to kind of, get some sort of white noise in the background. Usually those things help me a little bit, and then yeah, having an alarm clock, not a phone on your alarm clock or an alarm clock on your phone, but having an actual physical alarm clock definitely does help. So you're not staring at your phone, swiping or whatever, or scrolling through Instagram and such, in the wee hours. So all of that
Yeah.
definitely helps. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy because like I used to when I was growing up, I'd go to sleep with my TV on. I'd have like light and ambient noise and all this other stuff, and now like everything has to be pitch black, and it's really hit or miss if I'm gonna get good sleep because I toss and turn or I'll wake up and all this other stuff. But it's kind of disappointing. Like I went on, the trip to Detroit. I was there for 2 nights. I was like, man, I'm gonna get some awesome sleep. Like it's gonna be great. And like both nights really sucked for me. Like I couldn't get comfortable. There was one day I was up for like 3 hours in that stretch. So like I think the thing that I've learned is, I get like what I get at night. It could be right now it's like 6 or 7 hours, but like I love crushing like a good half hour to hour nap. I don't know if you're a nap guy at all, but man, like it just recharges me. Like I'll do it at lunch or something. It just like recharges me, and I just gives me a second burst for sure.
Yeah, yeah, American work culture really needs to look into naps. I mean, Japanese culture very like to the point that they have, yeah, like little kiosks. Like it's a business where they have nap rooms, right, just around. So like if you're working downtown, it's not a hotel, but like you have like a by the hour type of place where you can just go in there, take a nap for like half an hour or so, and yeah, great. You're good to work another 3, 4 hours, right? So naps are valuable. I feel like we ought to be making naps more of a thing. And, or, some people I know, they even go to the gym sometimes. So yeah, if you do get your sleep, it's like, yeah, having like a mid workout definitely does help, so you aren't, trying to wake up so early and to beat everybody at the gym, or, the after work crowd, which I hate. So yeah, like that's like the worst moments I think in my life. But yeah, like being going to the gym like for like at 2 or 3 p.m. I think definitely helps. But yeah, we really need to be making napping a thing, and especially in a work from home setting. It's like we're adults, right? I think most of us are. We're adults. Set an alarm, put out of office or busy on your Outlook or whatever, and yeah, just have it set for naps. Or yeah, don't even tell anybody and just do that. Honestly, nobody will know if you, especially for work from home. So yeah, napping ought to be much more of an acceptable thing because yeah, it's better for the company too. It's like, oh, somebody's gonna be more energized. Like, don't you want that? So yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely diminishing returns if you're working extremely tired and things like that. Like you're not getting the best out of yourself. And yeah, I think everybody would understand like if you need rest, extra rest to just work a little bit more. Like I think that's super practical, especially if you're getting stuff done, you're a good producer, you're a positive
Mm-hmm.
member of the team, the culture, everything like that. So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, that's my piece on sleep, I guess.
Yeah, one more thing on that too, especially for parents, right? I think that's another thing. Yeah, like we talk about, people. There's a lot of people that don't want to have kids, and oftentimes like, oh, because of lack of sleep, right? Like some people they love sleep so much so that they don't have kids and all that too. So it's like, great, let's make napping a thing. We put the kid into daycare, and then I'll go sleep. Like, there you go, problem solved. Everybody's a little bit happier there. So yeah.
Yeah. Now kids are, luckily my son sleeps, so I can rest assured that I know he's going to get his hours in at night. But man, when he's
Yeah.
up and I'm up and we've got all other things going on one day, by the end of it, man, it is completely draining. So, and it happens every single day. So, yeah, got to buck up and get used to it, which I've tried to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, we can put this whole episode to bed at this point, and see you guys back here. Probably starting next week.